Jenks here. I get a lot of people that are starting out in starting to run ads and spend money promoting their business, but they're not really sure how to track their performance. They kind of know instinctively generally, but they don't have a good process for tracking that information. And so I want to share with you what I do, um, at least at the early stages. It's kind of like having a household budget. Um, there's lots of software out there that can do it and automate a lot of it and make it take less time. But I think there's a lot of value in just getting into a spreadsheet, looking at the numbers, being very, very familiar with the numbers, the money in, the money out on a daily basis. And so I think, especially if you're just starting out, it's really helpful to have a spreadsheet that you are tracking this information meticulously. And over time, you can find tools to take over parts of it for you once you've gained some intuition and you have ideas and insights into what works and what doesn't work and how you can manage them effectively. But I want to share what I use at the early stages to track performance. So I'm going to do a few things here. I'm going from memory, so you'll have to bear with me if I have to stop and think for a minute here and there. But I'm going to go date, day. I'll talk about why I put day in there in a minute. Spend, conversions, revenue, and then I skip one. And I'll go CPA, that's cost per acquisition. Some people call it customer acquisition cost. I like to do average order value. Here's ROAS, or return on ad spend, and then I do profit in dollars, and then notes. And so the first thing you'll notice is I like to create kind of separators here. Clean this up a little bit. And then, all right, so for date, I always follow the format of that. And for day, I'm going to do, yesterday was Thursday. So I do this because no matter, like, yes, your Excel or Google Sheets, they know how to handle this in various formats. But if you just make this into a CSV file, which is just simple text, it's still going to make sense. You can always keep it sorted. All right. So let's left align that because they will always take up the exact same width. Oh, another thing that this is just kind of nerdy, but I like to put everything in a mono-spaced typeface, and that way, like, ones are just as wide as eights, and it just helps align things vertically, especially once you get numbers with commas in them and things like that. This one I'm going to go Friday. We'll pull that down a little bit, but I want to format Saturday and Sunday differently. You don't have to do that, but oftentimes I've seen that traffic behaves differently on weekends, conversions behave differently, ads behave differently, and so I like to kind of separate those out so I can observe those. So if I go, let's see, Thursday through Wednesday, pull that down. Okay, now spend, let's just make up some numbers here. Spent $100 a day, assuming you're first starting out with running ads. Maybe you started bumping it up to 200 and kept it at 200 for a while. And then eventually, my mouse is being weird, sorry. Then you started going, all right, let's get more aggressive here. And all right, so then let's suppose that got you 10 conversions and 11 and 8, 9, 10, 11. Oh, you bumped up your spend, so let's say that's 21. and 19 and 20 and 16 and 23. Let's just copy these down a little ways. And then let's go 50, 60, 40, 45, 53. That's good enough. Just copy those down. Not what I meant to do. All right. And now your revenue. Let's suppose that you are making about $100 per conversion. So I'm going to cheat here a little bit and do 100 times that, just so I don't have to make up a bunch of silly numbers. Yes. I'm going to copy these because I don't actually want that to be a formula. Let's go paste special values only. Okay, so they're no longer a formula, it's just a number. That's gonna work a little too perfectly for what we do later, but that's fine for now. Now, all of these columns here are calculated columns. So I don't want you to ever really touch these after we set up this sheet. But to set it up, we're going to go, okay, cost per acquisition, that is what you spent divided by the number of conversions. And we're going to bring that down. And I want that to be in dollar format, but I don't like decimals. So let's just do that. It's not that I don't like decimals, they're just, I don't think they're that useful. I just operate from overall dollars. Average order value, that's going to be your total revenue divided by the number of orders. And that's the one that I said is going to be a little too perfect. But and again, this whole column should be in dollars. Let's jump. Oh, I spelled that wrong. Profit. Can't type today. Okay, this one is going to be revenue minus spend. And I don't want to fill that with this one. And no decimals. All right, so this is if you spent $100 and you made $1,000, then there's $900 of profit, which makes intuitive sense. This is similar, but it's helpful to measure it kind of separately. And so I go, this one is revenue divided by your ad spend. And so what that does, let's go ahead and fill that down. This is not a dollar amount. This is, I do like one decimal in there. Sometimes. This is you made 10 times what you spent in revenue. Okay, so you spent 100, you made 1,000. You spent 200, you made 2,100. So you made a little over 10x. And we can talk about in a minute why that's a useful number to have. So let's fill this down. And then the notes column I will use, so like here we bumped up budget, and I'll say returns were good, spending more. Or maybe it was like right here we got a 12x return. So maybe the day before that I killed some underperforming ads and added new ones. And maybe that might be some insight into why performance lifted the next day, for example. Now this is dollars. This is dollars. If you're a spreadsheet ninja, you're hating that I'm using my mouse for all this. I'm just trying to make sure everybody can see what I'm doing. Although, to be fair, I'm not a spreadsheet ninja. Now, there are two other things you can do. I'm going to drag these down. I'm going to fill in a bunch more data here. My highlighting got off. Anyway. There we go. All right, and let's just copy a chunk of this down. That's fine. All right. Well, actually, let's make sure we've got that lined up. All right. So the two things you can do from here. One of them is we can highlight all of this data and we can say, I want to insert, let's only highlight the actual data. I'm going to insert a pivot table, new sheet. So as this fills out, like you may end up tracking this for months and it's just going to keep collecting data in here. And then over here, what you can do is say, well, I want to look at this for analysis. I'm going to go, let's put the date on the rows, and let's put spend in the values and revenue in the values. So this is showing you day by day what your spend and revenue were, which isn't that useful because we've already got it over here, right? It's the same thing. But what you could then do is right click and say I want to group by, and let's say year month. So now it's showing me in March of this year I spent 4,700 and made 46,000. In April I spent 12 and got 119. In May I spent that and earned that. So it's a good way of summarizing the data. You want to make sure that you're looking at the data properly. So this is going to summarize it by sum. It's summing up your spend. It's summing up your revenue. That doesn't work for if you're pulling in like return on ad spend. You don't have a sum of return on ad spend. The best you probably can do in here is like an average. So it's going to say we averaged a 10 times return on ad spend for each of those months. Just pay attention to that. Be aware. But it's a great way of analyzing, and you can use this and generate charts and graphs. Not really sure what kind of useful graph we're going to get off of this, but there we go. You can see that your revenue bumped up and came down there. Anyway, you could play around with that and experiment. Another way to analyze the data, and you really have to pick either a pivot table or this other way, because once I start showing you this other way, the pivot table will become kind of useless. But the way that I actually use it on a day-to-day basis is less for like financial reporting and more for day-to-day operations. So I want to know if my acquisition costs are climbing. I want to know if my return on ad spend is dropping, or if my daily profits are dropping, or something like that. And so what I will do most of the time is I'm going to go right here. There's March 31st and then April 1st. So I'm going to go right in between those, and I'm going to insert separate rows. Say this is March, not relevant. Okay, here I'm going to go sum. I'm going to sum that. And then I'm going to do the same thing for these two, although this one is going to get the wrong formatting. And then here, I can't sum this, right? This is already taking my, this is a calculation. And if I sum it, I'm going to get a weird, useless number. So what I really need to be running this against is the same fields on this side. And so it's actually just the same formulas as I have up here pulled down, but now it's reporting it on this overall numbers. So I'm going to separate that out. Call it out a little bit, bold it. Okay. So here's what we have. At the end of March, overall for March, I spent $4,700. We brought in 46,100. We got 461 new customers at a customer acquisition cost of $10. I may bump up decimals on this because I'm just looking for a little more preciseness, but in the end, it doesn't really matter that much. Our average order value was 100. Our return on ad spend was 10, so we made basically 10 times what we spent on our advertising in revenue, and we made $41,400. The reason I differentiate between the ROAS and the profit is, especially at small scale, you could have a really good ROAS but a really bad profit. So you don't want to necessarily optimize for return on ad spend if it means that your profits are not going to be in the range that you need them to be. Sometimes you're willing to give up. Another way of saying that is sometimes you're willing to give up a little bit of that return on ad spend in order to get more dollars of profit. And I'll try to think of an example of that. Now, why did I leave all this extra space down here? Well, let me show you another example of what I do. Let's suppose, so this is, we could put in actual and target. Now let's suppose that my budget for advertising this month was $3,000. Okay, so I will sometimes put in 2,000 over 3,000, and that is a percentage. So far I have spent, as of the 25th, I have spent 67% of my budget for the month. Is that good or bad? Well, let's find out. I'm going to take that formula and do the same thing over here. Oh, whoops, that's not a formula. Let's say that I wanted this to be $25,000. So that formula I'm going to bring over here. So I've spent 67% of my budget, but I've brought in 79% of my targeted revenue, which means things are going great. I'm actually over-indexed for the month. And I'll actually take this same calculation. Can't copy it down because I'll get the formatting, and I don't feel like doing it the other way. But you can see it's already filling in here, revenue overspend. So I'm going to tab that, and we're getting 8x return on ad spend. So our target was to get an 8x return on our ad spend, and right now we're getting 10. So that's great. And then here, it's doing subtraction. So our target was to get $22,000 of revenue, and we're already at 17.7, so we're at 80% of our targeted cash. So you can see that these aren't exactly the same. And that's why return on ad spend and profit, there's just two angles of looking at the same numbers so you understand the full picture. All right, that's cool. So this kind of suggests to me that I can bump up my ad spend. It's okay if my return is a little bit lower because I'm making more profit in dollars. The one other big question is, well, how much should I bump it up? How much should I be spending if I want to hit these targets? And so for that, and this is going to get a little bit hairy. It's a little bit, I hope you're not intimidated too much by formulas and numbers. But what I do is first I'm going to say, how much budget do I have left to spend? So that is that minus that. I have $1,000 left to spend in my budget for the month. And this number will update itself. So tomorrow if I spent $230, now I have $770 to spread out through these remaining days. Well, how many days are there? There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. But that needs to be a dynamic number that calculates itself. So what I'm going to do now is, I'll actually show these to you separately. I'm going to do count. And we're going to count the total number of days in this period. Okay. And then I'm going to say minus another count, and we're going to count the number of days where I've added a number here. So we're taking the total number here, which is, I don't know, 12, 13, or no, 18. And then we're subtracting the number here, which is 13, I think. And so that number is 5. Okay, there's 5 days left. 2, 3, 4, 5. That's calculating properly. Now I'm going to go at the beginning, I'm going to go put back in the original calculation of how much is budgeted minus how much have I spent, and I'm going to divide that. So what that says is I can safely spend $154 every day for the rest of the month, and I will hit this number, and that number will update itself. So let's say on this day I only spent 150. On the next day I can spend 155, 155, 155, 155, and then look at that, brought me right into where I needed to be. Now let's suppose, now I'm going to do the same thing over here and say equals, we're going to go parentheses, target minus actual revenue. We're going to divide that. Then we're going to go count. I'm going to do the same thing here. So total number of days minus count. And we're going to get the total number of days for which I have entered revenue. Close that. And so in order to hit $25,000 of revenue for the month, I need to get average $883 of profit for the month. So it looks like we're well on track for that. Now at this point, I don't have to do what the spreadsheet tells me to do. The spreadsheet is just telling me what I could do. So I could spend $167 a day for the rest of the month. And as long as I average at least $883 of revenue, then I'm going to hit my actual spend right where I need it to be. I'm going to hit my revenue is going to be at least where I need it to be. But I don't have to do that. At this point, I would look at it and go, okay, I could spend 167, but we're over-indexed on revenue. We're over-indexed on profit. So I can comfortably continue to spend $200 a day. That's going to put us over budget for the month, but our revenues are now above what we forecasted, which is amazing. Let me go grab these, bring that down. Okay. Now, another thing that I like to do, and it's not as useful when this is all filled in, but if it's not, then I can go, okay, well, how many conversions do I need to get in order to hit this number? Well, if that's the target number, if that's the target number, and my average order value is currently 100, then at a $100 average order value, I need 250 total conversions by the end of the month. So again, I can pull that in and go, all right, we're at 79, which is great. And I can even, if I wanted to, I could take this same formula, bring it to here, and that will tell me how many conversions I need each to average on each of the remaining days in order to hit this 250 number. So there you go. That's generally, there are a lot of other things you can do. We could, if you really want to get nerdy with it, we could pull in other fields, and we could say, well, how many impressions did my ads get? How many clicks did they get? We could, let's pull this over here. Come on, there we go. So what was my click-through rate? That's the number of clicks over the number of conversions. So let's say we got 100,000 impressions for our $100. Not that good. But we got, let's see, 10%, 1% would be 1,000. Let's say we got 2,000 clicks. I did not do that right. Oh yeah, I did. So that's a percent. So we're getting a 2% click-through rate. So if that's not useful on its own, like 2%, is that good or bad? I don't know. But if my customer acquisition cost was a lot higher than I'm comfortable with, then I know, all right, I need to figure out how to lift this click-through rate. I need to figure out how to get more clicks for the same amount of spend. And that tells me that I need to go make my ads better. I need to make my audience targeting better. Maybe I need to find better platforms to advertise on. So this is all just, you use this on a day-to-day basis to tell you how to operate your business. If your customer acquisition cost is right where you need it to be, knowing that your click-through rate is 2% isn't necessarily that useful. But you just need to know what all of the levers are that you have access to in order to move the numbers in the direction you need them to go. I wouldn't overcomplicate it too much. I would, especially at the beginning, just keep it simple. It's going to take you time to go in and keep these numbers updated. Maybe have a virtual assistant or someone who can go in and actually plug in all of these numbers for you, so that by the time you sit down and look at it, you're just analyzing these numbers over here and deciding if you like where you're headed, if you want to increase your budgets, if you need to tweak your ads or targeting. Sorry, I've got a weird voice issue today, but hopefully it's not too distracting. I hope this is valuable. If you want to see more things like this, let me know in the comments. And otherwise, I hope you have a great day. Good luck. And I hope you get to the point where you get over the fear of running ads. Just give it a shot. Like, you've got to pay a little bit of tuition to learn and understand how they work. And then pretty soon, once you start the process and once you start seeing a little bit of success, then the question isn't should we run ads or how much money should we spend on this. Then the question becomes, how can we spend more? Where else can we run ads? Where else can we promote our business to get the growth that we're looking for? And that's pretty fun. That's a pretty fun moment when you get to that point. So I hope this is valuable. Let me know if you enjoyed it. Let me know if you saw any mistakes that I made, or things that you would do differently. And I look forward to learning from you guys down in the comments. Thanks. I just finished recording the video, and it just occurred to me that maybe you just want to download the spreadsheet so that you don't have to recreate it from scratch. So I'm going to go ahead and drop a link to it in the comments below. Hopefully this is valuable. If it is, I would really appreciate if you could drop a like and even share it with a friend or someone else you think could make use of it. And other than that, enjoy. Thanks.